it's kind of crazy to think about how close we are to opening day, and it's things move real fast this time of the preseason for me. Just trying to get all the preseason stuff done, on time. So we're happy, we're excited, but there's a lot to get done between now and opening day.
It's funny. We were talking about this a few weeks ago. Last year, there was so much buildup to the start of the season because we had the College Baseball Classic that was in Arlington at the Rangers ballpark, and you had Ole Miss and Mississippi State and Arkansas, and you had 3 teams from the Big 12, and all 6 teams were preseason top 10. And we don't have that this year. That tournament is happening, but it's got a little bit different look, and the tournament in Houston, like 3 weeks in, is good, but it's a little bit different start. I'm curious, what grabs your attention about the opening weekend this year?
I mean, frankly, opening weekend is not as good this year as it has been in years past. And I'm not sure if that's a function of the pandemic with, did scheduling get kind of messed up over the last 2 years? Did we just get some weird things happen that, the tournament in Arlington, like you mentioned, is back this year, and they've got a bunch of good big name teams in it. Texas Tech, Arizona, Michigan, Auburn, Oklahoma. But last year, repeating that would have been hard, but maybe they just didn't get quite as lucky with some of these teams coming into the season. The tournament that MLB has run in Arizona the last few years, the MLB4 tournament, which in 2020, very notably on opening day, put Michigan and Vanderbilt, in a rematch of the World Series finals, out there. That one just, again, isn't quite as good. So what's grabbing me on opening weekend? I mean, it is those tournaments. Those 2 are good, but I think there's some intriguing opening day series. You've got Vanderbilt hosting Oklahoma State, and you've got in Starkville, Mississippi State welcoming in a pretty good Long Beach State team. So I think there's some stuff like that going on around the country. Florida has Liberty, which is maybe a little under the radar, but that's interesting. I think it's a little more stuff like that rather than the big gaudy tournament.
Before we get to the teams that are in the Baseball America preseason top 25, I want to ask you about one that is outside looking in. I'm curious how far outside the top 25. That's Southern Miss. Scott Berry's club brings back a lot. Obviously, they lose some pitching from a season ago, some really good quality veteran arms. But when you look at Southern Miss and Scott Berry's team and probably their final year of Conference USA, what do you make of them? What's the ceiling in Hattiesburg this year?
I thought long and hard about Southern Miss over the last few weeks. First of all, for the top 25, and then we also, in the magazine, have to predict what we call our Omaha sleeper, which is basically just a team that's not in the top 25 that we think has that ability to go to Omaha. And I thought really long and hard about picking Southern Miss for that as well. I think they probably do have that upside. I ultimately didn't pick them because there is so much turnover on the pitching staff. But I think from a offensive standpoint, I think they can be really good again. I think the pitching staff has upside, but, you lose guys like Powell at the front end and, guys in the back end of the bullpen as well. I mean, it's just a lot of innings to replace for the Golden Eagles. But, Conference USA looks really competitive again this year. The 4 teams that made the tournament out of the league last year all look like they have that ability again this year. And I wouldn't be surprised if, we ranked Southern Miss at some point this season and if they had some sort of tournament run in them.
Teddy Cahill from Baseball America on the Farm Bureau phone line. Teddy, I don't know if you know this or not, but Mississippi State beat Vanderbilt in the National Championship Series last year.
What?
Just
Not
FYI.
enough people talk about that.
Yeah. Texas has got a ton coming back. Everybody kind of seems to be on board with Texas as the number 1 team. You've got Vanderbilt just in front of Mississippi State. Vandy loses the combination of Kumar Rocker and Jack Leiter at the front of the rotation. Mississippi State loses its rotation. They're going to bump Landon Sims up to the front of the rotation this year. What was the differentiator there for you with Vandy being just 1 spot ahead of Mississippi State?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's very tight there. I think that one of the differences was, just the amount of innings that they both have to replace is significant. I think that I feel a little bit better about where Vanderbilt's pitching staff is right now than Mississippi State. I really like Landon Sims moving to the front of the rotation. I don't really have any doubt that he'll be successful as a Friday starter. But when you do that, now you've created this hole in the bullpen, and he was obviously incredible. Once a weekend, you could go out there and use him for 2, 3, 4 innings whenever you needed it the most, and he would go out and he got the job done time after time. So now, how do you cover these bullpen innings? How do you, fill the other 2 spots in the rotation? I think that, I said a million times last year that Vanderbilt, beyond its 2 starting pitchers, wasn't, there was a problem on Sunday that, there wasn't enough depth there. Well, I think, first of all, I didn't give Vanderbilt's bullpen enough credit for most of the year. And then second of all, some of the pitchers they were throwing on Sunday or on Tuesday have really grown up. Patrick Riley was outstanding in the Cape Cod League this summer. And I think that I just feel good about where they're at. I feel good about the fact that they return so much offensively. And, it's not just pitchers that Mississippi State's losing, right? Tanner Allen is a huge piece of the puzzle, the SEC Player of the Year being gone, a few other pieces offensively. But, Tanner Allen, so important to that team, won the SEC Player of the Year trophy. There's just a lot for Mississippi State to replace. I think they've got a lot of great players back, but I guess we just feel that much better about what Vanderbilt has.
All right, so Teddy, you've got Ole Miss ranked 9 in the preseason. You've got 6 of the top 10 are SEC teams. Here's what I'm curious about. If I made you take out a Sharpie marker, you had a column that had all 25 teams in the top 25. Where in the top 25 would you draw a Sharpie line and say everybody above this line is interchangeable and it really changes after this point?
Well, I think that there is a line pretty early on. I think that, probably after Florida is where we're drawing that line. So after the top 6 teams, I think we really start getting into teams with some more question marks.
Okay.
Not that
so by the way, those top 6 are Texas, Vanderbilt, Mississippi State, Notre Dame, Virginia, Florida. And then if you put a line there immediately after them, Stanford, Arkansas, Ole Miss, LSU to round out the top 10.
Yeah, and I think the difference between the commonality with those 4 teams that I've drawn, below that line that I've drawn, is that there are a lot of pitching questions and really good offenses there. All 4 of those teams have some significant questions in their rotation, in their bullpen. They just have a lot of new innings to cover. They all can rake, though. And so if any one of those 4 or any grouping of them figures it out on the mound, the ceiling is really significant because of the way that they can hit. But those 4 teams, I think, and that's maybe why I'm drawing the line there, those 4 teams get grouped together in my head because of their questions on the mound, but they're great in the batter's box.
All right, so let me ask you this then, Teddy. If we're being completely fair, should we really draw a line after Texas at number 1? Because Texas has got all the arms coming back.
I think that's the place you can draw the line, and I think you can also draw a line either after Mississippi State or after Notre Dame. I think there is, especially Virginia and Florida, there's a difference, and there might be a difference between even Mississippi State and Notre Dame.
And this thing's going to be really interesting to see. And I guess the reason I pause when you say that, or go back and ask the question about Texas, is it feels like with Vanderbilt and Mississippi State, and I candidly know less about Notre Dame and Virginia, it's kind of the same thing that you're talking about 7, 8, 9, 10, is there are a lot of question marks on the mound because of what those teams lost, which is kind of where we started a few minutes ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Texas, for me, has the best run prevention in the country. Their pitching staff is probably the best pitching staff. They have the best rotation. They have incredible depth there. And then they have a defense that is going to stack up among the best in the country. Their lineup is not as powerful as some of the lineups that we've talked about. What you're going to see in Oxford or Baton Rouge or Fayetteville is they're more powerful than what Texas is going to put together. But the depth of Texas's roster is the differentiator for me. And that's true in the rotation too. You can find teams with flashier aces, find teams with flashier number 2 starters, but the totality 1 through 3 or 1 through 4, if you wanted to include a midweek guy into that's where Texas is different.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Can't wait for the start of the season. Teddy, look forward to our conversations all year long. We'll talk to you soon.